right, in a short while from now, we are expecting the pictures now to come from Hyderabad House, where, when it comes to Mohammed bin Salman, as far as the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is concerned, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi today will be holding this bilaterals, and this is coming on the sidelines as far as the historic G20 summit that is now over. But the meeting between India and Saudi Arabia and their respective leaders will become and will now be taking center stage, as this is the second state visit to the country, with the previous one that happened back in February 2019. Now, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who has been accorded a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, saying that all eyes will now be on the crucial bilateral meeting that will be happening at the Hyderabad House. In a short while from now, we're expecting those pictures to come live. Now, in the evening later on, even when it comes to the Saudi Crown Prince, he will also be paying a visit to Rashtrapati Draupadi Murmu at the Rashtrapati Bhavan itself before he departs from Delhi.
कनेक्टिविटी इनिशिएटिव्स को प्रमोट करते हुए कुछ मूलभूत सिद्धांतों का सुनिश्चित किया जाना महत्वपूर्ण है, जैसे अंतर्राष्ट्रीय नॉर्म्स, रूल्स तथा लॉज का पालन, सभी देशों की संप्रभुता और क्षेत्रीय अखंडता का सम्मान.
And today I'm proud to announce that we've finalized a historic agreement for a new India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor.
We look forward to the integration of the initiative and the economic corridor project, which is announced in this meeting.
First, the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. This is nothing but historic. And this is also the spirit of the second project we announced today, the Trans-African corridor.
Well, if we talk about the growing relations between the two countries, we also talk about the Middle East. That has always been an integral part of Prime Minister's foreign policy, as far as his previous visit to Egypt is also concerned. And that was the first that was done by an Indian Prime Minister in the last 26 years. He also visited the UAE back in 2015 and became the first Prime Minister of India to visit the country in 30 years' time. And the list goes on. However, the Prime Minister has made it clear and as priority rather to strengthen India's relations with the Middle East, of course, with the latest bilateral that is now planned with Mohammed bin Salman. We also have a guest joining us, and our reporter Pragya, who will be giving us a breakthrough exactly when it comes to what is on the table, on the agenda. We have Mr. Prabhu Dayal, who is a former ambassador, joining us here on the broadcast, and Chirayu Thakkar as well, who is a foreign policy expert. But before that, we need to understand exactly the importance that this meeting holds. As far as the Saudi Crown Prince on state visit is concerned, all eyes will be now on this bilateral with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as far as all of the work that has been done, the setting up of the Strategic Council, the Partnership Council, and that was done in his previous visit. Back in, we talk about in 2019, and how much growth really has these two countries seen after this council that has been set up. And of course, the relations that are set to be strengthening further is something that we also need to talk about on this latest economic corridor that has also been talked about and announced formally by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So let's talk about exactly when it comes to the details is coming across on the focus, because the focus this time around, let's break that down for our viewers. The review progress, in fact, on has been made under two of those ministerial committees that have been set up. The focus too also will be on the discussion of all of the aspects when it comes to the bilateral relations between the two countries. The discussion also when it comes to political security, the defense and trade ties as well, and also on the agenda could be economic, cultural and people-to-people ties that could also be discussed. Also, we talk about the discussion on regional and international issues of mutual interest. These are said to be the big time as far as the focus is concerned. That will be on the table. That will be discussed in a short form from where we are expecting the pictures, Pragya, to come in from Hyderabad House. Pragya, we are expecting the pictures from Hyderabad House any minute now.
Absolutely, this is a state visit. Mohammed bin Sultan, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, stayed back for the state visit. There is a review of bilateral ties. Also, Mohammed bin Sultan last visited India in 2019, and it was followed by a trip to Saudi Arabia by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where the two countries, in fact, created strategic partnership council. It's a very important meeting. He has stayed back for a review of bilateral ties as well. We just saw in G20 G20, there was a launch of economic corridor between India, Middle East and Europe, which is a big event. It also boosts the economic and trade relationship with Saudi Arabia. Mind you, Saudi Arabia is one of the important countries, in fact, in the Middle East. It is the most influential one, considered the custodian of two holy mosques. So he's the king of Saudi Arabia, is one of the most influential leaders in the Middle East. So this also focuses a lot of things on domestic politics as well, Amita. If you see, because this is a place where the two mosques, Makkah, Medina, are there, it also sends out a message to the minority. And Prime Minister Modi and Mohammed bin Sultan enjoy a very close relationship. Mohammed bin Sultan is known also as a reformist in his own country, and Prime Minister also has given a Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas message, not to just India but also in the G20. It is an international message that Prime Minister is giving, that we are all for everyone and we just want to focus on development. This partnership, Amita, has been evolved over a period of time. Prime Minister's foreign policy, India's foreign policy, had Middle East in the focus right from the beginning, and they have worked consistently on that. And this is why, when Prime Minister goes out in Middle East, he also
of course, Pragya, because we have heard Prime Minister walk the talk when it comes to the Act East policy. But how important is Middle East really to India? That is also something that has been highlighted multiple times by Prime Minister. If we talk about his recent visit to Egypt, that happened by the first time in the last 26 years by an Indian Prime Minister. The previous visit, that was to the UAE, that happened on two occasions. As far as in 2015 and 2023 is concerned, it was the first Indian Prime Minister to visit the UAE in a gap of 30 years in 2015, and visiting UAE again after wrapping up his visit to France. This is something that the Prime Minister has made it a point. Whenever he goes to a big foreign visit, he will cover another country, maybe for a short while or so. Let's talk about what happened in 2018. Well, he was hosted by Sultan Syed Qaboos of Oman. He also paid a visit to the Grand Mosque in Muscat. Thereafter, in 2019, this is something that is now big development that is now coming in, where he visited Saudi Arabia on the invitation as far as the leader is concerned. 2018 is also important, where the visit to Palestine is also concerned, because Prime Minister Modi became the first Prime Minister to make an official visit where 6 MOUs were signed, and that happened during the Prime Minister's visit to Ramallah as well. Let me go across to Mr. Prabhu Dayal as well. Sir, what exactly is your understanding as far as Prime Minister's Middle East and strengthening the ties? Do you believe that this is an answer also when it comes to countering China's BRI? Of course, there are several other aspects that need to be covered here as well, sir.
Well, you have very correctly summarized the situation. Prime Minister Modi has made great efforts to strengthen India's relations with the Middle East countries, with particular emphasis on the Gulf countries, keeping in mind trade, especially oil imports. And of course, as you mentioned, the huge Indian diaspora there. As you mentioned, Prime Minister Modi visited Saudi Arabia in 2016 and again in 2019. And I would like to recall that he was awarded Saudi Arabia's highest civilian award in 2016. Now, on his part, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has also been emphasizing the importance of Indo-Saudi relations. He became Crown Prince in 2017 and also the de facto ruler. And since then, Indo-Saudi relations have thrived. As you said, he came on a state visit to India in February 2019. So this will be his second state visit to India.
Right, sir. And
he had earlier announced during his 2019 visit, investment opportunities worth $100 billion in India in the areas of energy, refining, petrochemicals, and infrastructure. So I would like to underline the fact that as a result of these efforts, the bilateral trade between India and Saudi Arabia reached an all-time high of $52.75 billion in 22-23, and India has become Saudi Arabia's second largest trading partner, whereas Saudi Arabia is India's
the fourth one.
Fourth largest trading partner.
Right, sir. Chirayu, what in your understanding, because there is a vision 2030 as well, Saudi Arabia is now aiming to transform its economy and to create new opportunities for its citizens and its people across the world. India, being in its Amrit Kal, also aims to build a nation by utilizing the demographic dividend. How, according to you, this collaboration between Saudi Arabia and India would actually help both of the countries meeting their respective goals?
Yes. See, look, this kind of warming of ties couldn't have come at a better point because we have seen 30 years of lull and there were misgivings on both parts, on the Gulf region more broadly and from the Indian side as well. The Gulf primarily saw India through the India-Pakistan prism or the new insurgency that started. OIC used to condemn India year on year, and this created certain challenges on the Indian part. On the Indian side also, there was continuously viewing of the Gulf only through the prism of Pakistan, and it was a spectacular failure that nobody imagined creatively for 30 years that there are the potential leverages that can be used in this ties. It is only to the credit of this government that what they have done is, especially the Prime Minister, he has, we always talk about the hesitations of the past with the US, but what he has done is he has given up the hesitations of the past so far as the Middle East is concerned. And primarily the reason is that, and on the other hand, if you talk about the Gulf as well, they are also, there is also a realization that your hydrocarbon wealth is not unlimited. There is an exhaustion and you have to transform your economy from an oil economy to a non-oil economy.
Right.
Also, there's a nationalistic fervor. They don't see themselves purely from a religious perspective. They have their own national identities overpowering. Moreover, you have a ruler who is reformist in nature. He wants
but there is also a religious aspect here. Prabhu sir, if you can delve a little bit on it, because religious tourism that has also been driven by Hajj also plays a significant role when it comes to cementing our relationships.
Yes, of course. The Hajj pilgrimage is very important from India's point of view because we have such a large Muslim population. And Saudi Arabia extends all cooperation to us by giving whatever facilities it can for the Hajj pilgrims visiting their country. And the importance of this has to be understood in the overall context of how these little measures
and it gains its own significance as well, because this is special right after the culmination of G20. He's the only leader who actually stayed back to hold more talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Thanking all of our guests joining us here on the broadcast. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out your time. And we also have to understand